Hello YouTube. This is a video about a water heater repair on a Rheem water heater. We had a flood and I came home from a trip and found out that we did not have any hot water. Went down to check the pilot light, figured that it was out, of course, uh, in the basement, and tried relighting it, wouldn't light back up. So first, my disclaimer. I'm not a professional. I'm not telling you how to fix anything. I'm showing you simply how I fix something. Other people have other advice. This is just what I did. I'm sure that some professional will come along and tell you that what I did was wrong and was unsafe. So if you choose to fix something, hey, that's up to you. This is a Model 22V40SF 40-gallon water heater from Rheem. It's set up for natural gas, and it was manufactured in April of 2009. We looked at some other tanks. What if we bought a new one? That sort of thing, $600 plus. And I thought, well, for $600 I can probably give a go at repairing this one. So it's a 36,000 BTU unit. It's sufficiently and efficiently providing hot water for my family of 6. And that includes my 9th grade son, who showers at least 2 times a day. Some people have the opposite problem. A kid that don't shower. I've got a kid that likes to shower. This particular water heater was submerged in a flooded basement for approximately 6 hours as our supersaturated ground conditions and extended rains caused flash floods in Warren County, Pennsylvania in June of 2019. So I was traveling. I got home a day later, and I was just hoping to get lucky and tried to relight that pilot light, but it didn't light up. This unit has a piezo lighter on the unit and a sealed pilot light, but it is not an auto igniting system. As I snapped the piezo lighter and held down the pilot button, it would not reignite. I wasn't surprised by that. It takes both gas and spark to light, so the problem was at least one, if not both of those. So to work pulling out the ignition and the burner unit. This is going to be pretty simple, and you're probably going to be surprised. And if you come upon this video, you may have had some issue flooding or pilot light out, not sure what you have to do. So the first thing that we want to make sure that we do is we're going to shut off the gas supply to the tank. And keep in mind, I bought the house with this tank and this setup in it. I probably would have installed a typical standard gas supply ball valve here. But I live in the real world where everything isn't perfect, and right now the most important thing to me is really the hot water. So I'm not going to replace that. Maybe something that I do later on my list, but I'm just going to get it shut down right now. So once the gas shut off, I disconnect the 3 lines into the thermostat. Now technically it's a thermostatically controlled regulator. It regulates the flow of gas from the outside of the supply line into the tank and when it should ignite or not. The larger tube that you see here is the burner supply tube. And the small silver tube on the right, that's the pilot tube. It supplies gas to the pilot light. And the copper tube on the left is hooked up to the thermocoupler. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, though. Also, the piezo igniter button on the mount on this thermostat housing is mounted up there and grounded. So now using a T20 Torx, I remove the 4 Torx head screws. Once removed, the whole burner ignition unit is ready to be removed. It's worth noting that there is a seal around the unit, and in this instance the seal remained seated to the ignition unit, but that might not always happen. So it's the moment of truth. I'm looking for a couple of things. First, how much sediment is in the tank. You can see it here. It's not overwhelming, but not exactly zero, of course, which is what you would really prefer. And the second is I'm looking to see if the TRD is still intact. The TRD is the thermal release device, and in this instance it is intact, so we'll talk about that in just a moment. The third thing I look for is to see if the screened bottom, so there's a screened bottom, that's where the air comes up for the burner, if there's sediment in there and if it's closed up those holes, because if that has happened, then in essence it would be the same as triggering it would be the same as triggering the thermal release device. That's how that thermal release device, or the TRD, works. If the tank begins to overheat, the glass shatters. The spring-loaded doors that are on the bottom, they're open currently. You can't really see them here, but they would shut. And so when you look at that, just think of that as a glass fuse. So Sediment could do the same thing and start out the system. So I clean it out. I take the burner ignition system outside into the sunlight. After I have it outside in the sunlight, I blow out the tubes. You can use a compressor to do that if you want, or like I did, you can use your lungs and mouth. There was water that had backflowed into both the pilot and the burner gas supply. That water could easily stop gas from flowing correctly and keep the pilot light from relighting. So I let it dry in the sun, and then I wipe it down, and I try to ground the igniter on the gas tube because it's free now and it's hanging. And if you push it between your thumb and your finger, the only thing that you're going to do is shock yourself. So if you ground it to the rest of the tubing and hit it, then you can see if it's actually sparking down at where the pilot light will be lit. So I wipe it down and I ground it and I hit it, and it sparks repeatedly. Now this is critical. You need to see this spark before you reinstall it. Now I don't have video of this part, but trust me, it's pretty simple. While I'm doing this, I have the fan blowing inside the bottom of the tank to dry it out, and I reinstall the 4 Torx screws after I fit the whole burner unit back into there. I put the copper thermocouple, the silver pilot tube, and the burner supply tube back together, and I snug them up. I turn the gas supply on, but in this instance I forgot to put the igniter in place, so I placed the piezo igniter into the grounded thermostat housing mount. At this point there's gas supply to the thermostat, so I turn the gas supply on the thermostat on, so that's the little black button on top there, to the pilot position. In this position it allows you to push it down, so you notice as I push down it goes further down than it would in any other position. This manually opens the gas line to the pilot only. You have to hold this down for a minute or two probably to evacuate the air in the system, and I turn out the lights when I try to light it as I hit the igniter in that and have the button pushed down because the pilot light is hard to see. So once it lights, and you can see it in the video better than I could see it there, I actually had to turn out the light several times and get down there and really look at it. The red flashing light, by the way, that's from the camera. I turn, after it's lit and I see that it's lit, I turn the supply knob on the top where the pilot knob was to on. I then turn the thermostat up to the correct temperature, and actually in this case I turned it, there's a setting on it that says normal, or has called out where normal is. I turn it up a little bit higher than that because we don't have any small kids. We've got 4 kids in the house, but my youngest is the 9th grader. And then I just made sure that I told everyone, I sent everyone a message. That's a nice thing about technology, right? I sent them all a message just saying, hey, I turned the hot water up a little bit, so be careful in the shower. So I turn it up, make sure that it ignites. So what happens is that the pilot light is lit in there, and then when you turn it up, then the feedback from the thermocouple tells it the temperature, and it opens the valve for to give the feed to the big burner that you saw pulled out earlier. So I then I make sure after that ignition that everything's good. I put the cover back on, and that's it. There you go. It's a simple removal, cleanup, and restarting of the pilot light and ignition burner. Now, if you needed to replace any of those items, you could do that. You can get online, you can look up your particular model number, you can go and look at a blown out diagram to see what parts, and then you can go look them up right on Amazon.com, and they can be in your house in 2 days. So it's pretty cool. It's much better than spending $600+ on a new tank. Now, keep an eye out, because I have a furnace down there in the same basement that was in the flood also, and I'm going to show you how to replace the control board on that and get the furnace fired back up also. But that's probably going to wait a few weeks while we do some other more pressing stuff. Besides that, it's 88 degrees Fahrenheit today, and the furnace is not really needed at the moment. So hopefully you find that helpful. If you did, please subscribe. Leave a message down there if you have anything you want to say. If you want to tell me, how something I did was unsafe or that, whatever. All you safety nannies can come after me. But that's what I did. That's how I did it. It's been working fine. It's been a week now, and everything's firing upright correctly and shutting down correctly. So there you go. Hope it was helpful.